Okay, so I'm gonna show you how much and how to properly dip a lash extension into lash glue. So the first thing you want is a fresh, perfect little glue drop into a dome shape. Now, I always use some sort of either a little aluminum pad or some aluminum foil. Don't use paper tape because it can react with the glue, but just something to hold that glue into that perfect little dome shape. Because when I dip into the center of that, the consistency is going to be the thinnest and it's also going to stay the freshest. Now, one thing you want to avoid, few things you want to avoid, is dipping right in from the bottom. Because the bottom of the glue right here is going to start to cure first. So it's going to become thicker and more goopy a lot faster. So you just want to be out of that habit of going right in from the bottom here and dipping in. Now you also don't want to dip like stabbing it in from the front, because you don't want too little glue in there either. So you want to just get that perfect seamless amount of glue that's going to give you the perfect bond between the extension and the natural lash. So there are different dipping methods that you can use, and it's whatever one works best for you. As long as you're getting the right amount of glue on your lash, then you are good to go. But I'm going to show you guys the one that I prefer and the way I prefer to dip my lash into the glue here. So I like to just come in at an angle and just dip the lash right into the center of that glue dome. About 1.5 millimeters in is the perfect amount to just get that bond with the natural lash. So you want that area kind of covered in glue. Now that it's in, of course I'm showing this in really slow motion, I'm gonna slowly pull it out of the glue drop. Now if I pull it out too fast, I can risk getting too much glue. So if I, let's say, just went in here and pull it out, you can see I even changed the glue drop by doing it so fast as when you're in a rush. And you can see there's quite a bit of glue on there. There's a big bead. It's actually two small beads. One's already dispersing on there. So it's going to be a bit too much glue. You can get, lashes sticking to each other and all kinds of issues with that. It's also a bit too heavy for the natural lash. So you don't want that extra weight either. So if I get too much by accident like this, it's pretty easy to fix. You can actually re-dip it again. Put it back into that glue drop and just pull out a little bit slower. Everything's so much patience with lash extensions, and this is included for sure too. And see how that fixed that right up? Now I'm going very slow on this for a very minimal amount of glue, but there are a couple times when you may need a little bit more glue. Let's say you have a really super oily client. Super oily clients will need a little bit more glue because the glue just resists sticking sometimes to oily clients. You'll find they need a little bit extra care, a little bit extra glue, a little bit of extra washing at the start. So if you notice really oily lids, oily lashes, you're gonna wanna watch out and just pay special attention that you're using a little bit extra glue and washing them really well so that you can get them to stick. Now, another thing is high humidity. If you're in a really high humidity climate, or let's say your client is going into a high humidity client, like they're going to the Caribbean and they're getting their lashes on, you may want to use a little bit of extra glue just to hold up against that high humidity. So in that case, we'll go back in. And you want to come out a little bit quicker just to get that little bit of extra. So you can see on there how you can see a little bit of that glue, but it's not that big bead like I had earlier. It's just enough that we can use it to apply to the lash. So I'm going to show you guys when we have a little bit of extra glue like this, how we get that nicely onto the natural lash. So I've got my extension here with that little extra bead of glue. So what I'm going to want to do with that is just slide it a little bit up and down along the base just to evenly distribute that excess glue along the bond, and place my lash down and let it dry. So it just sort of evenly, there's still a little bit of a bead there, so I could have shimmied it just a little bit more, but it's just that micro movement of just shimmying it up and down and waiting for that lash to dry so that we can have that little bit of extra glue on there if we need to. Now, one thing you want to avoid doing if you do have excess glue, and I see this all the time in lash videos, is, okay, so I'll show I have a little bit of excess glue, is coming in and just dabbing it, like blobbing the back of it onto and wiping it on the back of the pad. So you want to be really careful with that because you're actually removing too much of the glue by doing that, and then there's not enough left to really properly stick on here. You'll get a bit of a bond, but it won't be quite enough. So if you find you have too much glue, you can use the method I showed you where you dip in and then you just slowly remove it in order to fix that. Because a lot of times I will see that where there's too much glue and, you know, it's just being kind of wiped on the back and then applied on either the back of the iPad or the glue ring or whichever. But in that case, you're not going to have quite enough glue. It's really such a fine line between too much and not enough glue. But when you wipe it, you do risk losing too much of your glue, which is why I just recommend avoiding that in the first place. So instead of wiping, just put that lash back into the glue drop and slowly remove it out and you'll get a better amount of glue. Even if it's still too much, you can try that again. And you'll get that perfect amount of glue that you need.